Hello and welcome to our next segment reading of the Asatru Edda. I am Asgard Skegg, and in today's chapter, we're actually circling back to a previous chapter we discussed where some mead was stolen from Mimir's possession. And this chapter is entitled Byrgir. One day in Avaldi's kingdom, Svithjod in Kalda, in the woods near his own stronghold, the spring called Byrgir was discovered. This was the store of mead that was hidden by Fjalar before, which had been stolen from Mimir's fountain. Ivaldi had kept the discovery a secret, and when night had fallen, he sent his two youngest children, the girl Idun Bil and boy Hjuki Sagfinner, who were still living with him, and a pail to fetch this mead and carry it home. But the children never returned. The moon had come up while they were at the well, and Mani had spotted them. He and Ivaldi were not friends. In early times, Ivaldi had carried away Mani's daughter Suna and married her without her father's consent. Mani would now avenge his daughter's theft. He took the children, Hejuki Sagfinner and Idun Bil, from the earth while they were walking from the Byrgir Well. They were carried between them on their shoulders the pole called Simur, and the pair called Sager. Idun looked up at the moon and said, "Little man who goes yonder and beholds house after house, drink this mead with us, and we would like to know you, but we cannot get to you." These children followed Mani, as can be seen from the earth. He took the mead as well. Mani treated them tenderly, for they were his daughter's children. Idun had received the rank of Asinja. Ivaldi was very bitter about the loss he had suffered. That Mani took his children could be seen as just compensation, but that he also robbed him of the mead, this was too great a price and filled Ivaldi with thoughts of revenge. He could see the moon chariot from his high fortress in Thisjod in Kalda every day as it traveled its path. He planned an ambush for it and attacked it with fire at night and robbed it of its mead store. Slagfinner defended his foster father, and in this conflict he received a wound clean to the thigh bone from his father. From then on, Slagfinner bore the name Gelder, Hengest, and Jarkar. Ivaldi abandoned his post where he was protecting the Leivagar from the Himthusar, thereby breaking the oath that he had sworn to the Godin. And so that the mead would not fall into their hands again, he quickly carried it down to Fjalar's realm, Sokdalir, and returned it to the one who had originally stolen the mead and created the Byrgir fountain. The mead was kept in the farthest depths of his mountain halls in Hintbjorg, where Fjalar put it in the charge of his daughter Gunnlaud. It was arranged that Ivaldi would marry Fjalar's daughter Gunnlaud, and that they would own the mead together. Ivaldi had thus, for all time, made himself into an enemy of the Godin. He left Fjalar to ally himself with Jotunheimer's Jotun, but would return on the determined day and celebrate his Bruthlop with Gunnlaud. Odin was not ignorant of what had happened in the darkness down there in Fjalar's realm. His ravens, Hugin and Mugen, daily fly over Jormungand, and they not only see what occurs in its beautiful and bright regions, they also spy on that which happens in the misty Niflheimer and in Sokdalir, where Fjallar rules. There and in Niflheimer are the ravens exposed to dangers, and Odin fears that it could go badly for them. But so far, their wisdom has protected them, and every evening they have returned to Valhall, sat on Allfather Odin's shoulders, and spoke in his ear what they had found out. It was through them that Odin got to know where Ivaldi had hidden the mead and when his marriage with Gunnlod would take place. There lives in Fjallar's realm Dai de Vergar, who perform bond services for him and his at. One of them was Fjallar's door watcher. He promised to Odin that he would help him in the adventure, which he now went to try. Odin set out from his home to seek out the ancient Jotun in Sokdalir. The day had come when Ivaldi would celebrate his marriage with Gunnlod. Fjallar's kinsmen were gathered in his illuminated halls, and guests belonging to the At of Himthrusar had come there from Jotunheimer. A golden chair for the expected bridegroom was placed in front, opposite Fjallar's seat of honor at the drinking table. The Buthalap reception would also be a celebration of the alliance between Ivaldi and the powers hostile to the Godin. It brought great joy among them, and they now believed they had had a good chance to overthrow the Aesir and destroying Midgardr. The watch the Jotun had established by Helvergamir was abandoned by Ivaldi, and Ivaldi himself was a mighty champion, well suited to lead the hordes of Jotunheimer into battle. The bridegroom came at a good time. The doors were open, which separated the intense lighting inside the Jotun's hall from the darkness that broods over the depths of its dales, and in stepped the stately Ivaldi, who was greeted and led to his golden chair. But the guest of honor was not who he seemed to be. He was Odin, who had assumed Ivaldi's form. Odin had climbed down into Suttungr Fjallar's gloomy chasm and walked over the devious paths in Sokdalir. Odin had no difficulty in finding his way through the darkness, for he had Heimdallr as his companion, who can see 100 leagues in front of him through the darkest night. Heimdallr had brought his fire auger, which which has the drilling and splitting power of lightning when its owner places it against the base of mountains. When they reached Hinthbjorg, the Godar separated. Heimdallr went up on the roof of the fortress. He could hear the slightest sound, so he could also hear all the way down there. The day-shy hall guardian, who stood outside the doors of Hintbjorg, saw Odin coming through the darkness and opened the door for him. Then a merry feast was celebrated there. The bridegroom was cheerful and verbose, and the guests had never heard a man who put his words so well and had so much to relate that was worth listening to. Little did Odin get there by silence. In many words, he spoke to his advantage in Suttungr Fjallar's hall. But it was necessary for him to express himself with great caution at the same time, for an imprudent word was dangerous, and he could lose his head. Caution was not so difficult to exercise in the beginning, but it became harder later on. During the feast's proceedings, the bridegroom was to be honored by having his drinking horn filled with the liquids from the Byrgir Well. On the golden seat, Gunnlod gave Odin a draught of the precious mead. she took a hornful of the mead and gave it to him to bind him to her. Then Bruthra proceeded, and Odin and Gunnlod swore the oath of faithfulness to each other on the holy ring. The joyous feast was continued, and the horns were filled frequently, especially the bridegroom's Ivaldi. Ivaldi was not only known as a great spear champion, but also as a drinking champion, equal to Hungnir and coming closest to Thor in this sport. Because of this, he was also called Svidr, Svithrir, and Svegthir. In order to present himself to everyone as a Valdi, Odin had to drink a lot, more than he could. He once spoke of this. The heron of oblivion, which steals one's wits, hovers over the Sumbul. I was feted with the bird's feathers in Gunnlod's dwelling. I was drunk, I was very drunk, at that cunning Fjalar's. It's the best Sumbul when each gets home retaining sense and reason. It was no longer easy for Odin to weigh his words, and over his lips now came such that the less drunk among the guests thought it strange for these words to be uttered by a Valdi. And later in the night they contemplated this after the feast was finished, and they became suspicious. The banquet was at last concluded, and Odin and Gunnlod departed to the bridal chamber. From there, a path went through the mountains to the room where the precious Byrgir mead was stored. Gunnlod showed Odin this treasury, and Heimdallr, who listened above there and heard what they had said, set the fire auger on its roof. Gunnlod had given her husband her whole soul, her fervent love, and took the vows she swore to him with devoted solemnity. Rati Heimdallr's mouth, which struck the rock, made room for Odin's passage, and gnawed a space in the stone above and below were the paths of the Jotnar. But Allfather Odin would not leave from there without a struggle. His careless words bore fruit. A brother of Gunnlod had been kept awake by the thoughts of the words aroused in him, and he burst into the mountain chamber where Odin and Gunnlod were, just as Odin was ready to escape. Odin had to fight and kill him. Odin was called Svidr and Svithrir at Mimir Fjalars, and beguiled that ancient Jotun at the time when he was alone before the slayer of Mithvitnir Fjalar's famous son. It is doubtful that he could have left from the Jotun's Gardr had Gunnlod not aided him. He won the heart of that good woman, whom he took in his embrace. Then Odin turned himself into the form of an eagle and flew as hard as he could. He came out and flew in the eagle guise with Byrgir's mead in the pale Sogr up through the bored passageway that Heimdallr's fire auger had opened. From Fjalar's misty world to the bright regions and the gleaming Asgardr, the mead was the drink which Odin bore from Sutur's Sokdalir. When Suttungr saw the eagle's flight, he got in his own eagle shape and flew after Odin. And when the Aesir saw Odin, they put their containers out in the courtyard, and when Odin came over Asgardr, he dropped the mead into the containers from Sigr. But it was such a close thing for him that Suttungr Fjalar might have caught him. Odin gave Suttungr Fjalar's mead to the Aesir and to those men who know how to make poetry. From the well-changed liter he had reaped great advantage. Few things fail the wise, for the mead has been brought up to men's earthly dwellings. On the following day, the Hrimthrusar came to learn of the High Union in the hall of the High Union. they asked if Byrgir Odin were he back among the Godin, or had Suttungr Fjalar destroyed him. Suttungr Fjalar had decided his sumble stolen, and Gunnlod cried for her lost kinsman. Ivaldi, the true bridegroom, arrived at Fjalar's castle not long after Odin, but he never made it inside. He came to Hintbjorg, where there was a stone as big as a large house. As he entered, he cast his eye upon the stone and saw that a Dvergr was sitting under it. Ivaldi ran towards the stone. The Dvergr stood in the door and called to Ivaldi Svigdir, told him to come in and he should see Odin. Ivaldi ran into the stone, which instantly closed behind him, and Ivaldi Svigdir never came back. The day-shy Hallgard of Durin Sutur's descendants deceived Svigdir Ivaldi when he, the dauntless son of Dulci, ran after the Dvergr into the rock. And when the shining Jotun inhabited the hall of Sokmamir Sutur's kinsman, yawned against the Jarl. Some say that Ivaldi was crushed under the boulders that were tossed down from the mountain. The mead is kept in a ship-like silver chariot on the moon and was thus returned to Mani. It has the quality of not being diminished when one drinks from it. Odin was invited to partake of the moon ship's mead, and he goes there often after he finishes his day's work as the chariot slowly sinks towards the western horizon. It is called Sokvabekkr, over which cool bellows in soughing sounds flow. There, Odin and Saga Idun joyfully each day drink from golden goblets. Idun is Bergris Ergefin, and also called Orgefin. The Skalden pray that she may be gracious to them and ask if the noble Bir Idun will favor them. From Odin's union with Gunnlod was born a son, Bragi. He is renowned for wisdom and especially for eloquence and command of language. He is especially knowledgeable about poetry, and because of him, poetry is called Bragr, and from his name, a person is said to be a Bragr, chief of men or women who has eloquence beyond others, whether it is a woman or man. Idun is his wife. Braga is the best of the Skalden, and Runar are wristed on his tongue. He is called the inventor of poetry and Inskirjekja As. It is from this name that the expression Skegbragi comes for someone who has a big beard. Bragi was allowed to drink of the Byrgir mead, which gave him the power of speech and eloquence. Thrigi Odin's kinsman Find, the one that had been kept secret, was in times past carried from Jotunheimr into Nokvi Mani's ship, where Bragi, unharmed, refreshes himself. Mani is the lord of the Hiptir, and he keeps the lemur with which these maidens of revenge are armed. Thus he is also called Ilimi, because Ivaldi, the drink champion and mead thief, attacked and burned the moon. His punishment in the afterlife was that he would never see the realms of bliss in Asgard or Hel. Instead, he remains on the moon, and there he carries Mani's bundle of Limar until Ragnarok. Thank you for sitting in on this next segment. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please make sure that you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe for all of our future content. Thank you again for joining in, and we will see you on the next segment.